Hi, everybody. Welcome to K Factor. I'm Ramy, Sedra, your host. And on today's episode, um, we're going to talk about the big question. So what's the big question? Well, it's what's the difference between C60 and traditional reports that you find in most of your ERP or operational systems in the ready-mix business? And help me talk a little bit about the difference between C60 and enterprise reporting is our very own Nathan Eckel. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ramy. Happy to be here.
So before we get into the big question, Nate, you've been in the business quite a long time, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your history in ready-mix?
Yeah, so prior to joining C60 a little over a year ago now, I had been fortunate enough to spend some time in the mud. My career started in the technical service industry where I spent some time testing concrete, doing some research and development on some of the new innovations in the additives. And then I spent some time optimizing mix designs. I then transitioned into a management development role where I spent some time in all the other divisions of the ready mix industry, where I spent time batching, dispatching, doing some sales, as well as some profit loss analysis. And then more recently, I spent some time in the aggregate industry where I actually got to be a part of the production of the sand and rocks that make up concrete. So it's really given me a really good foundational knowledge of the RMC industry as a whole.
So you've been dabbling. You really got an opportunity to touch a lot of different parts of the business.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything about ready mix that you love in particular?
Yeah, I think ready mix is an interesting beast. It's very, very ad hoc. You have to really be adaptive and be able to problem solve on the fly. Apply the knowledge that you learn from the QC side of things to managing your mix designs, to how you quote and bid projects to make sure you're running a profitable business. So I think the ad hoc nature and how rapid decisions are made in the ready mix industry is really appealing for me, and then that also allows me to tailor my other interest and passion, which is new technology and innovation, and help bridging the gap between an industry that is maybe lacking in the innovation sphere and compile that with my industry knowledge.
So I'll go out on a limb and say, I guess that's why you're here.
Yeah.
That's why you joined the team. Bring a little technology into your life.
Yeah, precisely.
So, today we're going to talk about the big question, as I put it, right? And I can almost hear the drum roll in the background. About, what's the difference between C60 and enterprise reporting. And I think that's an important question, and one we hear all the time. I'd love to get your take on, what you think is the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think, reports can be great. I think they offer a lot of flexibility and customization, and I think that's what makes them so powerful, as long as you have the ability to analyze the data, to collect it and sort it and clean it. And what I think is different about traditional reports and what C60 can offer is we actually do the integration of all the different data that comes from all your systems. We compile it and put it into one central hub where you actually have access to all the information you need to understand how your business is operating. And then we actually analyze it to give you some of the most profitable areas of your business that if you were to make some changes or focus your attention and resources, I think you could really improve your business and the overall operation.
So Nathan, sounds great. I mean, from everything I've understood from what you've described is you're basically saying C60 is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, integrating all of the different data that a ready mix producer might have, putting it into one spot and then running a bunch of analytics, to help them uncover insights into their business. And that sounds great, but can you bring it home for me, maybe with a couple of real examples? Because I guess, if I'm a producer kind of listening to this conversation, I'd certainly love to understand like a real example of the before and after.
Yeah, I think, I could come up with a couple of really good examples. And the first would be, in a previous life, I was putting together business line reviews and business performance review reports that required myself to go into the different applications and software that we're using to batch concrete, to produce it, to invoice, to compile all that information and then put it into a report that actually related to that month-end statement where we can actually analyze delivery costs, material costs, as well as some interesting sales reports.
Okay, so then let me give you a couple of scenarios and tell me how you would have done it. Okay, so if I wanted to know the answer to how profitable my business is, and is my business actually improving from one period to the next, right? So maybe that's one question. And a second question is like materials are the most expensive cost in the business, right? So do I have a good handle on my material usage? Am I wasting materials? So that would be the second scenario. So do you think you can take me through these two scenarios?
Yeah, well, that takes me back to exactly that scenario where I just mentioned about running these reports and compiling all this information. Hello, boss.
Hey, Nathan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Listen, it's month end, and I'd love if you could put together a little bit of a sales performance report for the Dover plant for me. Do you think you can turn that around pretty quick?
Yeah, give me a day and I'll have that back to you.
A day? All right.
All right, now to put together that sales report. So first I need to go into our accounting software to pull up reports to see the volume that I've shipped from the Dover plant. I then need to look at the dispatching reports to see the on-site performance to get a gauge on what our delivery costs were. And then now I need to open up a report to show me which products we sold and how much, as well as a QC report to give me the material costs for each of those mix designs. Once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and put it all into a centralized report, and it should be good to go to send back to the boss. Hey, boss, I got that report for you. It should be in your mailbox shortly.
Hey, Nathan. That's great. Let me take a look while I still got you on the call. Hold on. Nathan, this looks great. Yeah. By the way, I just noticed it's only Dover. Do you think you could do Springfield and Washington and get that back to me real quick?
I can, yes, but that is going to take another couple days. I got to rerun that whole process again.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, okay. If you could get that back to me as quick as you can, because I'm going to go out to Springfield and Nathan, hello.
Hey, sorry, I got sidetracked there thinking about what I used to do in a previous role.
Yeah, it felt like you kind of went down memory lane there. So I was wondering if you could answer the question, like, so what's different now, right, using C60 versus, what you were doing before in your past life, building reports?
Yeah, so I think, the big difference before, it required me to pull up and create these reports. I had to go into multiple systems. I had to customize the reports out of the ERP systems to make sure that they all aligned, whether I was looking at plants or customers. Then I needed to export the data. I needed to combine the data from the different systems into one centralized report and then organize it so that it actually reflected our P&L statement. And make sure that we were able to connect the dots between what our data is showing us versus what the P&L report says. So what's different now in C60 is we actually have created a centralized hub that has all the information that we would need to understand who we're selling the concrete to, which plants, which products, as well as pulling in the different costing metrics that go into that to look at the cost of those materials, the cost of those deliveries, what was the average selling price and the revenue, not only just from the concrete, but I can actually break it down from the service charges and some of the value added products as well. And that's a task that used to take, days and hours to put together. I have all that information in one page in one location.
Do you think you could show us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to show you.
So let me ask you a quick question, right? From this vantage point, could you, tell me the plants or the customers that are likely going to have the most impact on my business and my profitability? Could you show that to me from this dashboard?
Yeah, absolutely. The way this dashboard's designed to provide insights is to show you not only the problem customers, but if you wanted to see the plants that maybe had generated less margin than your other plants, or maybe it's particular products, you have the flexibility to view all of that just by changing a few different filters. So what we're looking at here is I can see for the month of May in 2023, I can actually view how much volume did I sell out of a particular plant. I could see my total volume, my total margin on materials, my margin on materials after delivery. And then I could see information about my average selling price and some of the service charges that we were able to capture. Now, if I wanted to know for a particular plant which customers had the highest or lowest margin, I can do that by simply clicking on a plant. It's going to resort this dashboard to show me only the customers that bought from my Dover plant. And then I could sort it by which customers did I maybe generate the lowest or the highest margin. So these customers that come to the top of the list, like Emily Tech and Daniel Productions, these are customers that I'm generating the most profitability off of. Now, if I sort it, inverse sort it, I'm actually going to look at which customers am I generating the least margin off of. And those would be Mary Dynamics and Thomas Worldwide. And I'm able to do that now with a couple clicks instead of trying to ingest the data myself and have to perform the calculations and then analyze the data.
So how many different metrics could I, possibly see out of one dashboard like this one?
Yeah, there's, I think, hundreds of different metrics. If you're looking at your selling prices of the concrete products, you can look at selling prices of your additives and other service charges. You could also look at your different material costs. And then you can sort it by different filters too, to look at it by project, by market segment, by grade of concrete. So you can really see where some of the improvements to your revenue comes from, where it's generated, and the inverse of that as well, where some of the other projects or customers that you may need to tend a little bit more focused on to improve those margins.
And Nathan, how often as a producer do I get this data now? Like if you're showing me this dashboard, do I have this for all my plants, specific plants? Do I have this data every month, every week? How often, do I get this information?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you're actually going to get this data every single day. You'll be able to look at what was my margin for a particular project or customer yesterday. Whereas some of the reports you may have needed to wait a month or a week for them to generate and populate before you actually can dive into the details. And with the ready mix business running on a day-to-day basis where everything's ad hoc, right, It's easy to forget what happened a week or a month ago. So the ability to look back on yesterday and make some improvements and some actions immediately is a really crucial and functional piece of C60.
So if you were to click on that date range, you mean I could actually go look at data from yesterday? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what we're saying. If I wanted to, I could select yesterday, I could select the last 2 days, I could go back the last week. And if I wanted to actually look at last year, I also can compare customers on a yearly basis or even plants on a yearly basis.
Okay. And I noticed you've got this thing called margin type up there. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you can view this by margin type on a per unit rate, which will allow you to see what you're generating off of a per meter or per yard basis. You can also view it by total. So if you wanted to see the total revenue generated from plants, products, projects, etc., you can view that as well, where it's not on a per unit base. It's taken into consideration the total volume of that product sold and its selling price.
Now, you're showing me right now all of the plants, but would I be able to pick a specific plant and kind of drill into, I don't know, it looks like Washington's mom is in the red there. If I were to, is there a way to just kind of isolate Washington and kind of analyze everything to do with Washington? How would I do that?
Yeah, you can do that a couple different ways. You can either use the tables to sort by the certain customers or job sites that you sold particular products to, or you actually have a filter option at the top of the screen that allows you to go into Washington only. And if I wanted to look at the different products, the customers, the job sites, or the market segments sold out of this particular plant, I can view that on a quick filtering of the different widgets that we have in the dashboard.
And I've got this, at the click of a finger, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, not only the click of a finger, but every single day as well.
And so it sounds like, the way you're basically describing this is, it sounds like you went from a process where, you were gathering all this ERP data, right? Or looking at different reports from different sort of slices of the business. Maybe it's different modules, you're looking at stuff out of QC, or, getting some material information out of batch reports, and, looking at some dispatch reports. And it sounds like you went from a world where you're pulling these different reports, trying to compile them, in an integrated way, and then doing the analysis. From the example you're showing me, it's like, well, all of that's kind of done for you. And here you're just, point and shoot on the things that really, really matter that you want to analyze, and you're not doing any of that legwork. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I think some data is a lot easier to access in ERP systems than others. One of the examples is actually understanding what is your dynamic load cost, for each ticket sold to a particular customer on a particular project, right, to actually understand how long it took for the average delivery, what was the average load size. Some of that information, it takes a lot of effort to gather and aggregate all the data to really understand the different cost structure for different customers along different market segments.
So this is helpful because I find like this really brings it to life, and it's helped me understand and focus on the differences from a sales or profitability perspective. But what about materials? I mean, how would this apply, for example, to batching, right? So if I want to understand, how my performance is in terms of the use of my materials, how would you do that in C60 versus, what you were doing in your past life?
Hey, boss. Okay, you need me to run a materials report? Yeah, I suppose I could do that. It'll take me about a day to do that. All right. Bye.
Nathan, you with me?
Yeah, sorry.
It seemed like you went off into like another daze there for a second.
Got sidetracked again, thinking of another report I was running.
So forget about the flashbacks, my friend. tell me, you were going to show me how you do this on the materials side. You were going to give me an example of a materials-based report. Anything you can show me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one that comes to mind is our batch accuracy dashboard. So with traditional batch accuracy reports, one thing that I've noticed with them is a lot of them are really geared towards incident-based analysis, where they often aren't looked at on a weekly or a monthly and sometimes even a yearly basis. They're often only pulled up when there's an issue with a concrete mix, either having a low break, or there's a visible issue with the concrete itself, or if there's a customer complaint.
Right.
And it's used then as a detective tool to really understand what happened with that load of concrete and what can I do moving forward to change that. So RC6.
So yes, sorry to interrupt you, but and maybe you're going to get into this, but would be great if as you kind of get into the details to just kind of explain to me what it is we're seeing and kind of what's on the dashboard. So maybe you're going to cover that, but I just wanted to kind of raise that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done with our batch accuracy dashboard at C60 is we're not only diving into the weeds about the individual tickets and orders and loads of concrete that may have a batch accuracy issue, but we're actually showing the aggregated batch accuracy of the entire plant across all your plants in your enterprise. So you can really see the trend. If you focus in the top left here, you can see the trend of all your plants, and those are those gray lines that are going across from left to right. The accuracy of those plants over the course of a time period, so that if you do notice a certain scenario where over the month of November up until maybe December, that there was a big dip in one of your plants in batching accuracy. Now that may be caused for a multitude of reasons, but having a dashboard that shows you that aggregated trend will allow you to catch the issues where a batch plant is now batching a little bit less effectively, and to hopefully correct the issue and get that batching accuracy improved so that you avoid those customer complaints or those low breaks, anything that could cause an issue with concrete itself.
And so producer, using traditional reporting, like why is this difficult, or why is this C60 helpful in a situation like this?
Yeah. Batch accuracy reports, traditionally, they really only show you on a per delivery basis. So you can only see one ticket at a time, or you're downloading multiple or exporting multiple tickets into one Excel sheet and you're trying to analyze the data to figure out your overall performance of the plant. So it does take a little bit extra time to actually get that information. But what we're doing here is we're doing that work for the producer. We're showing them their plants, not only in a 1 day or 1 month view, but what is the overall trend of that plant over the course of the last year. And based off of the materials that may be batching in or out of tolerance, and those would be your major food groups like cement and cementitious and aggregates, etc., you can actually see which materials are batching out of tolerance, by how much, how many times, and what is that costing a producer over the course of a year off of material leakage, which ultimately ends up as profit leakage as well.
So what I'm hearing is like, hey, the data's there. Like producers have the data, right? Like when you're in your previous life, like you had this data. It's just what I'm hearing is like you had to go and compile, delivery by delivery or, plant by plant to try and put something together to give you this view. And that takes you a couple of days every time you want to answer a question.
Yeah, exactly. The challenging part is the automation to get that report often without having to manually enter and run those reports and aggregate the data. So now you have it all at your fingertips, and you can view, like the sales analyzer dashboard, you can view it last month, last week, last year, or even yesterday. So if you wanted to get ahead of a potential issue with a load of concrete that was batched out of tolerance, you would have that visibility.
So if I went into that date range selector, maybe you can click on that for me. that actually shows me the same kind of calendar capability. So I'm actually able to pick, one day. So I can pick yesterday's data if I wanted to. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I could get this every day, or I could pick a range. Like if I wanted to look at my busy season versus, my not so busy season, I could do that.
Yeah.
Now, what about, like, I kind of noticed you've got cement here on the top right, and I'm looking at an individual material in that graph. What are those, like, what am I looking at? What are all those little dots and those lines on that graph?
Yeah. So what these individual dots mean, these are actual batches related to a delivery ticket. And if I hover over one, you'll actually be able to see some information that'll help the producer go deep into the weeds to understand what ticket, on what date, and how much of the cement or any other raw material was batched out of tolerance. So this is a way to not only view the trend of your plants over time, but to actually dig into, on a per ticket basis, which of those tickets had their batch accuracy out of tolerance. And then you can, as a producer, replay some of those batches in your systems to really figure out the issue, whether it was jog time settings, maybe there was vibrator issue or something else, whether they changed their batch operators on that day. So you can actually dive into the specific ticket and the specific load to help do some root cause analysis on what the issue is.
So you can really triangulate one specific material, across all of your different plants, and really kind of understand, how you're performing with that one material. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I guess, it sounds like that's a lot of slicing and dicing of data. In a traditional report world, in your experience, how complicated or difficult is it to do that if you want to look at, isolating one single material across, all of your plants, or, all of your delivery tickets?
Yeah, most traditional reports, they'll break it down on a per product level. So they won't group it by your cements, your cementitious, and your coarse egg and fine egg. It really will just break it down on a per product code basis. And that might not tell you exactly where the issue is unless you compile and sort and categorize each of those products yourselves.
Interesting. And you at the beginning of our conversation today, you talked about the value of certain issues, right? So you were saying one of the things that you find is different about C60 versus enterprise reports is that, with the reports, you're looking at the data, you're trying to interpret the data and figuring out, is this important? Is it not important? And what is it worth to me? Now, when I look at that column that's written indicative cost impact, right, you've got, all of your sort of material types under there. What are those numbers telling you, Nathan? And can you explain that to our viewers a little bit?
Yeah, so what traditional reports will give you is the percentage of over or under batching of materials. What it tends to not show the producer is how much is that costing you and your business. And that's what this section of the dashboard shows us. It'll show us on a per plant basis and by the different material types, how much money is it costing the producer in either over or under batching. So you can see in this example at the Washington plant, they're over batching cement by 1.6% on average. And that's costing the producer, based off of the volume of concrete they're doing, $29,000 a year. So this really drives home the importance of identifying and correcting issues when it comes to batch accuracy, which will only improve not only your cost and material usage, but it'll improve the quality of your concrete as well, knowing that each time you batch a load, it's going to come out the same each and every day.
And if I'm just kind of like myself, interested in the colors, I'm getting in my truck or picking up the phone and having a chat with my friends in Washington plant about cement because it looks like that's a bit of an expensive problem that needs to get fixed. um, Nathan, I guess to summarize, the way you showed me the last two dashboards, this one on materials and the different views we can have on materials data. And then you showed me sales and kind of profitability and margin. The impression I get is that we're able to see, the 1,000-foot view in the air of the business and really kind of triangulate where are their issues. And then you can almost like really quickly kind of zoom in to the underlying kind of cause and effect. That's kind of the impression that I got from what you showed me. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, I have a really good analogy that I like to use with what I think C60 offers producers. You can compare it to, a sailboat where you have the crow's nest where you get that 10,000-foot view so you can see at a glance your overall performance. Is your ship still sailing on course in terms of all the important metrics that you track? But it also allows you to go below deck and really look if there's any leaks in any part of your boat that could prevent it from sinking or cause it to sink. So that's really important that we give both the 10,000-foot view onto where the issues may be, and then the below deck to actually pinpoint some really clear actions to improve that.
Well, I love your analogy. I think it's really great. And if I use your crow's nest, pick up on your crow's nest, it's almost like you're also forecasting and kind of looking forward and saying like, are we actually trending, in the right direction? So, love the analogy. All right. So Nathan, thank you first of all for taking us down a bit of a stroll down memory lane. I think we got you daydreaming there a bit. Hopefully it wasn't some scary some scary memories that you're remembering about your old job. But I did take a couple of notes and I think tried to capture, at least in my mind, right, the major differences between enterprise reports and C60 based on, I think, what you were telling us. And I guess the first thing is that C60 really focuses on profitability, right? Is kind of the key thing that you were telling me. And tries to point the user or the producer to the areas that need the most attention. Is that kind of the way you see it as well?
Yeah, exactly. I think, we reports will always have a place in the business due to their customization, but we really want to take the attention and the effort it takes to build these customized reports off the hands of the producers and give them a view and a centralized hub to really analyze their business at a quick glance. We don't want them to be spending time or resources to build these reports themselves that may not provide as much detail, and it may obviously take a lot longer to correct some of the issues that may be happening today.
And that's a really great point, right? Like I think what you're saying is reports are definitely part of the toolkit that a producer needs to run their business, and it's a very effective tool. But what you're saying is, hey, use reports when you need to, but at the same time, let's put you back in the ready mix business, right? Let's get you out of compiling data. Let's get you out of trying to analyze all this data. Let's do a lot of that for you, save you a ton of time, and then really put you back into the business of just, running your ready mix business and improving it. I think that's kind of the big difference that you're underscoring.
Yeah,
nothing to say. I love it. Awesome. So my last takeaway is, reports are complimentary. C60 gets you out of the manual, compiling data and puts you in the driver's seat of actually, continuously, improving your business. So folks, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having Nathan on the show today. If you think that, C60 can help you because, you're spending a lot of time compiling data, you don't have it at your fingertips, every day, and, you need that holistic view of the business, hit us up. We're happy to help you try the system, load your data into C60 and give it a whirl, and tell us what you think and see how C60 can help. Nathan, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciated having you on and giving us that perspective of, reports versus C60.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks for being on the show. All right, folks, give us a like, follow, send us some feedback, and we'll see you next time on K Factor. Take care.